Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Come September 1st, Bank Negara Malaysia will require all insurance and takaful companies to offer policies with a co-payment feature. Now, what this means is that new policyholders will have to eventually share a part of their medical costs. So why is Bank Negara implementing this change, and what does this mean for our healthcare sector, and how might it affect us? Well, joining us on the show to discuss this further is Azrul Mohd Khalib. He's the CEO of the Galen Centre for Health and Social Policy. Azrul, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Can you help us maybe better understand what this new Bank Negara requirement is, and why do you think it's being introduced now?
Well, Melissa, this is something that is not new, really. This was first announced back in February of this year, and it basically means that all new medical reimbursement products, basically insurance policies, will start requiring to be including a co-payment option for all new policies. So this is not new. Again, I have to emphasize co-payments and deductibles have been part and parcel of insurance for a very, very long time. And just so we clearly understand what these terms mean, co-payment, which we're discussing about today, involves the policyholder paying a fixed percentage of the total claimable expenses, and deductibles, which we're also familiar with, is the amount that we have to pay out of pocket, out of our own wallet or purse before the insurance provider will pay for anything covered under the policy. So these are not new concepts, and they have been part of insurance for a very, very long time. But what is new, though, is what Bank Negara is starting to impose on, which is that beginning 1st September 2024, all products have to have a co-payment option, and it looks like also eventually that these products will soon replace the existing no co-payment product, possibly by next year. So what we're going to see is that increasingly new medical reimbursement products will not have the current arrangement where you don't have to pay anything at the point for service, but it will now involve a co-payment. So you can still have your existing policies, but the moment that in the future you want to update or take in a new policy, they will no longer offer what we call a free rider arrangement, but it will have a co-payment where you have to pay a certain percentage of all fees, maybe 5%, and there is also the possibility that it will have an and/or option, which is including a deductible as well. So you could be in the future paying for both a deductible and a co-payment, and that will be for all new products.
But why, Azrul? Why is Malaysia? Why is Bank Negara trying to move away from full coverage insurance products?
Well, there is a problem that exists. It's not unique to Malaysia, but definitely in the way that Malaysia health insurance is being provided here is one where, as a basic understanding, is that insurance involves you going to get treated for your medical expenses and basically having the cost of that treatment to be reimbursed or paid for by a payer, in this case, insurance. So what's happening in Malaysia is that we are paying basically what the private hospital or the private medical practitioner is billing. So very often the trust here is that whatever treatment you need, the insurance will pay for. So there is a trust relationship here. What has started to happen is that the ballooning of that one side of the equation, which is the cost of healthcare, is creating an untenable and unsustainable situation where the insurers are seeing more and more expenses having to be paid for, which could very well be as a result of things like medical inflation, but also overcharging by the private healthcare provider and so forth. So this has resulted in a situation where insurers no longer are able to keep up with the payments that are needing to be made because it is just gone beyond what other countries are experiencing. It's very important for us to realize that medical inflation in Malaysia is actually higher compared to all the other countries around us. I think we're around 12%, and this is something that to deal or address this situation, Bank Negara has decided that it needs to share the cost of the treatment with patients. So instead of payers, in this case, the insurers, paying 100% for the cost of the treatment, you basically co-pay or you share that burden of paying for that treatment with patients. And that's what's happening right now.
So what causes medical inflation? So what causes healthcare costs to increase, and how would copayment address those kind of root issues of medical inflation?
Well, medical inflation for a country like Malaysia, which is an upper middle income country that is on the verge of becoming high income, there are many factors that factor into it. But one of the main issues here, which ties in to our state of health of the population. Let's face it, Melissa, Malaysians are not well. We have non-communicable disease crisis. There's obesity, there's hypertension, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease. Almost every single NCD you can think of that happens in developed countries, we are also experiencing here. And there is a price that we have to pay for these diseases. And very often, these chronic illnesses, when you look at those who have insurance, the insurers will have to, provide and pay for. But there's also the issue of an aging population. Malaysia, as you know, is increasingly having a significant portion of its population that is growing older, which is above the age of 60, 65. And therein lies also the fact that caring for an aged person is actually 4 times more expensive compared to those who are not aged. And you add on to the additional circumstances where healthcare is becoming more and more expensive because there's new technology, new treatments available. And, we demand for the best that we can get for healthcare, right? And unfortunately, when we have the benefit of an excellent healthcare system, which is what we have here in Malaysia, there is a cost incurred. Healthcare is not free. It doesn't cost 1 ringgit or 5 ringgit, certainly. And it does have, even if you're going to a public sector hospitals, there is a cost there. Now, insurance is supposed to protect us fundamentally from having a situation where, due to illness, injury, or disability, we end up having being exposed to the high cost of healthcare. We encounter these situations where there's catastrophic health expenditure. We have to pay for this crippling amount of money that we have to fork out, maybe 30,000-40,000 ringgit if you're accessing private healthcare. So insurance is supposed to protect us from the high costs of healthcare and this sudden expenditure, because that's why we pay the premiums, right? And the problem here is that what happens if that safeguard now is going to be reduced, meaning we would have to not only pay for deductibles, but we would also have to pay a proportion of that treatment costs in the future, not now, but in the future after we're done with our treatment. And, it's not like a restaurant, Melissa. We go to a restaurant, we can see the menu, and we can understand, how much nasi goreng costs or what kind of nasi lemak, and then you choose which ingredient you want, and then you end of it, you pay. When you are entering treatment for an injury or illness or a disability, we don't know how much it costs. We only know at the end of it, and suddenly what is supposed to protect us now, we have been presented with, say, 4,000, 5,000 ringgit bill that we also have to pay. It may sound small because in comparison to the larger bill, which could be like maybe 50, 40,000 ringgit, but it's still a lot for households that can't fork out so much money at one go. And there is a problem there because we are told by Bank Negara there is no cap. So that 5% or which is a minimum, yeah. A lot of insurance companies could even have 10% of copay. That could be a huge amount, and there is no limit as to how much they can charge, within that 10%.
That's quite shocking. So help me think this through. I mean, clearly, you've kind of laid it out on the table first. But what would you like policymakers, both health policymakers and fiscal policymakers, to consider in terms of maybe unintended consequences or the challenges in rolling this out, or the people who might struggle with this copay, the marginalized, those who might be facing financial hardships, who might be affected by the copay requirements? What would you like them, the policymakers, to bear in mind amid the rollout of this new directive?
So, Melissa, one of the problems with this new policy direction, and certainly the phasing out of non-copay reimbursement models and products, is that this policy could potentially increase hardship amongst households or households that, have a certain amount of savings. It can expose them to the risk of financial catastrophe, like what we see in the US, where people go into debt or even become bankrupt due to medical debt. Yeah, what we need to have from Bank Negara is definitely a cap, because we need, like what we have in Singapore, for example, that there is a cap per policy year. So for that year, you can only have this amount of copay. In Singapore, it's I think around 3,000 Singapore dollars. In Malaysia, we should be able to also ensure that there's a cap per policy year, the maximum that you can be charged within that year for copay. So maybe 5,000 ringgit, that's still a lot, but at least it's not going to happen per disease or per disability, which could well be the risk right now. Now, one of the issues that we have to admit is that co-payment may be necessary here for the sustainability of what we have today, and for us to be able to continue to enjoy the benefits of insurance the way we have been enjoying at the moment. But what we need to address, are issues of how much can people afford, how much of that co-payment, how will you deal with the possibility if a person cannot afford to pay that copay? Is that person going to be sued if by the insurance company if they can't pay that copay that they're supposed to pay, the 10% or 5% or whatever? But the problem here, Melissa, is that people are being encouraged to take insurance products which have copayment with the promise that their premiums will be lower, and that's the deal that they're saying right now, which is that if you take a copay product, it will mean that you pay less in premiums, monthly premiums. But here's the deal: the amount that you pay for copay could be far more than the amount that you pay as an increase each month over a period of 1 year. So if it means that I pay an extra 600 ringgit per year, and I would pay more just to ensure that I have 100% coverage, as opposed to this 5% or 10% co-payment, with the idea that I will get a 50 ringgit discount on my monthly premium. I'm not going to take that, because I can see in the future it could result in me coming into debt because of that 5 or 10%. So the situation really here is that we need Bank Negara to protect consumers. They need to protect policyholders, and not just to consult the industry when it comes to this issue. And unfortunately, we've been told that Bank Negara has done extensive consultation with the insurance industry, with the private hospitals. But what we feel is missing from this whole conversation is the consumer, the patients themselves, the people who are having to respond to this issue of escalating medical inflation. Why is it the task of patients, the consumer, the burden is given to them to address the problem of healthcare inflation in Malaysia, because that seems to be the case here. We need Bank Negara to have a clear policy of consultation with patients, consumers, to protect them, because we're supposed to look they're supposed to look out for us in terms of ensuring that we're protected from catastrophic medical inflation and expenditure that is going to be happening here. Because we don't want to end up in a situation like in the United States, where, there are hundreds of thousands of people who are suffering from bankruptcy due to medical debt. We don't want that here. We want there to be a win-win situation where the insurers and the private hospitals, they need to be able to protect themselves too, to be able to sustain their operations, but we need patients and people to be protected too against and to be safeguards against catastrophic health expenditure.
Azrul, thank you so much for your insights. I appreciate your time. Azrul Mohd Khalib from the Galen Centre for Health and Social Policy. We're going to take a quick break here on Consider This. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about Bank Negara's new mandate for insurance and takaful operators to include a co-payment feature in the design of any new products introduced to the market. Joining us now is independent public policy and health analyst, Dr. Chua Hong Teck. Dr. Chua, thank you for being on the show with me today. What do you make of this new co-payment feature in medical insurance policies going forward? What would you postulate as the rationale behind Bank Negara's decision on this?
Yeah, I guess as most people would have read, the reason that they came out was because of the rising healthcare costs, especially private healthcare. I know that it also affects the public, but because this is about medical insurance, those who take medical insurance normally will go to the private, what you call, hospital. In fact, Liam, the what you call Association for Life Insurance, they have also spoken about this. In fact, I personally have also been affected because for the last few years, my premium has actually gone up. So, but the thing is, but my policy, I have a co-payment. I guess most people do not have a co-payment in their what called policy, is because when they first buy insurance, normally you would want to have cashless. You go to a hospital, you don't want to pay anything except maybe those administrative costs that you need to pay. Whether it is the procedures done by the medical practitioners or the what you call medicine prescribed by the private hospitals, everything is like free at the point of you go, you check in, then after what you have done, you come out, the what do you call, the hospital will issue you a bill, but the bill is just given to you to show you actually how much. But because you have insurance coverage, you hardly pay any what you call anything. Therefore, I guess this is the case in what called Malaysia. But if you look at other countries, because I've studied in Australia and in what you call US, even in their national health insurance, there's nothing is free. There's always a co-payment. So therefore, we are not used to it. Because if you go to a public what you call hospitals, the government hardly collects what you call anything from even though there's some fees, but these are not what you call payment. It's so low that you don't really feel it. Sometimes you even pay more for the parking than So I guess Malaysians are not used to this. Therefore, there is kind of a uproar, in a sense. Oh, suddenly I need to pay something, maybe if it is say $1,000, now I'm mandated. I have to pay. If say it's 5%, you have to pay $5. But this is relatively nothing because the Malaysian system is such public and
Dr. Chua, so you're saying that the norm is co-payment, that we have been enjoying full coverage, free rider insurance for many years now, which is abnormal. Now, how would you respond to those who say this co-payment, the introduction of co-payment policies, and eventually maybe the phasing out of the full coverage, that it unfairly punishes consumers for medical inflation, which is not their fault?
I guess you need to read the Bank Negara statement. Bank Negara statement is very, very clear, But the problem is people do not read in detail what Bank Negara has stated. Bank Negara says that, okay, from 1st September, insurance and takaful companies must provide. But they also say in their statement, if you read their statement, 6th of July, they can also have non-co-payment policies, and those with existing policies like me, we can but mine has a co-payment. If say for example mine doesn't have a co-payment, I can still continue. So the co-payment amount, like mine is only 300 ringgit. I mean, those who take health insurance, I think they are not poor, Normally you are afraid of the big bills, You're not afraid of few $100s, couple of thousand. It is a big bills, 20,000, 50,000 that you are afraid. But these are not, they are not going to be co-payment for that big amount.
So should there be a co-payment limit? Should there be a cap on co-payments? Because right now we have a minimum, right? We have the minimum 5% for co-payments. But it could go up to thousands. It could go up to high percentages. Should we have a cap?
Yeah, so if you look at it, co-payment can be percentage or can be an amount. It need not necessarily be like 5% across the board. If you look at national health insurance in other countries, they even put a cap on out-of-pocket expenses. So I think we should leave it to individual when they buy or when they take up the medical insurance to look at those plans, and then they should actually the insurance companies and takaful companies should actually allow, like you need not because different people can afford different amount. 5% to like middle income for big bill is a lot, but 5% to a rich person, it may not be so much. So I guess it's very difficult for insurance and takaful companies or bank even to fix an amount. What they can do is actually fix the total out-of-pocket expenses for a particular year based on your income and your policy. That is done whether it is in Japan or in they have a national health insurance, Taiwan, or even Australia. So in all these countries, even though they have a national health insurance, but there is payment. Nothing is free. But because we are so used to free, that's why when they come up co-payment, everybody jump. But those who have insurance, I don't know whether you have, but I do have. They have we actually understand. It is those people who do not have insurance. They don't understand how insurance work, whether in Malaysia or in other countries, that they are jumping. I'm sure nobody wants to pay for anything. Everybody expect it to be free, but there is nothing free in this world because everything has gone up.
what considerations would you like policymakers to bear in mind as they push this out, as they roll out this new initiative? I'm just wondering, ought there to be exemptions for copay, people who don't need to, how do you think about it?
Yeah, in fact, Bank Negara's statement also says that if you look at it in the detail, if those who cannot pay for the co-payment, the insurance company actually should negotiate with them. So there is this what was statement there, but people do not read those what was statement. I mean, if I just I printed it out actually. In fact, I've just wrote something on this. So I guess when maybe Bank Negara doesn't make it clear lah. I guess they need to have more discussion. They should tell what people that this is nothing new. This is practiced throughout the world, and I'm sure the Ministry of Health, did the Ministry of Health say no? They didn't even say no. So they do understand, because the rise of healthcare is so many things have gone up. So if it would even be worse if you do not have payment every year, your premium goes up because as you age, your premium will go up. In the end, you can't even afford it. Your policy may even lapse.
Dr. Chua, I'm sure that there's lots more to cover about the issue of rising healthcare, but unfortunately we've run out of time on this episode. It's food for thought for future episodes, but thank you so much for being on the show with us today. I appreciate your time. That was independent public policy and health analyst Dr. Chua Hong Teck, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.